Hey, welcome to your day off. My name is Corey. And hey, once again, we're super excited. We are. This is the Your Day Off Hairdustry collab with our friends over at Beauty Launchpad and Beauty Launchpad. We bring in Gabby Bach. But Gabby, man, welcome.
Hi, how are you doing, Corey?
Amazing. Hey, look, just once again, we talked about it on last week's podcast, but I'm super stoked to keep talking about it. Is that I'm really excited for 2025. I'm really excited about the collaboration between Hairdustry and Beauty Launchpad. For those listening in, I mean, we're not trying, we are going to kind of like create the podcast that we do together around the priorities of what Beauty Launchpad is talking about, and kind of like the audio version of Beauty Launchpad. So Gab, kind of bring us in. What are we talking about? Well, first off, just kind of give us the what is Beauty Launchpad, the quick thing, and what are we talking about the next couple months?
Cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Gabby. I am Beauty Launchpad's Associate Managing Editor, if you aren't familiar with me. And Beauty Launchpad is pretty much, if you haven't heard of us, we're a trade magazine for hairstylists, hair professionals, salon owners, and we're all about supporting and uplifting the hairstylist in everything they do, and salon owners as well, of course. And so for 2025, to kick off the year, as Associate Managing Editor, newly Associate Managing Editor, I was promoted in July of 2024. One of the things that I kind of wanted to do is relook at our issues. We have 6 issues a year, and sort of see like where can I change things up in order to address what it is that our hairstylists need for 2025. And just from conversations that I was hearing, the biggest thing that stood out to me is really just to focus on wellness in all aspects, like mental health, physical health, emotional health, all of those things. And so we're really hitting that strong in 2025 with our first issue of the year, which is really great. And then we're also giving love to brunettes, some love to scalp care. And then also we have our top 20 salons contest, which is sponsored by Wella Professionals, where we just dive into salons that are out there making a difference in the community. What are they doing that stands out, and really giving love to that. So lots of really good stuff to look forward to in our first issue of the year.
Gab, when you were telling me about what the first issues of the year were going to be, it was obvious to me, if we're going to start talking about mental health, and we're going to start to talk about wellness, but in particular mental health. Over the last, I'm going to say 2 or 3 years, I know that L'Oreal Brands has really doubled down on mental health for the professional, and being that one of my best friends in the hair industry is kind of like heading that up, and I don't know if it's heading up or whatever, but we see his face everywhere about it. I thought it was a natural fit that we kind of bring on, and we talk about mental health and even how that affects wellness. So on the podcast today, I'm super happy and excited to bring Daniel Mason Jones in. Gabby, I'm going to push it to you because I want you to introduce Daniel Mason Jones, and then we'll get in with Mr. Daniel.
Okay, I feel like you did a really good job, but I'll try my best. So today, we are chatting with Daniel Mason Jones. Daniel, thank you so much for being here and chatting with us.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Yeah, so lovely to meet you.
Hey Daniel, do we have to call you Daniel Mason Jones, or can we just call you Daniel Jones or Daniel Mason or just Daniel?
No, it is Daniel or Daniel Mason Jones, or you, because we're in the friend club. You can call me DMJ. But yeah, my last name, people always get my name wrong. My middle name is not Mason, and my last name is not Jones. My last name is Mason Jones. So I'm like, it's DMJ, because I know it's a mouthful.
Well, it's like superhero stuff, right? Or you know what? It could be an assassin kind of thing too, right? Because like it's like John Wilkes Booth goes by 3 names, or what's the other one? The Kennedy one. Didn't he go by 3 names too?
Oh yeah, a lot of those. Yes.
So if you see Daniel with a gun, duck.
You know that it's not me.
Fair enough.
If you see me with a bottle of water, it's more likely. Yes.
Yeah. I think we shared a bottle of water. Well, no, we definitely didn't. Daniel's got this.
Not intentionally, if so.
My goodness.
Gabby, what's crazy is that Daniel and I are buddies, but it was really nice seeing him last year at ABS, because I don't really think we ever had time to kind of connect before that, and we were able to spend a couple hours together at ABS, which by the way, is just why I love these like live events and just get to see, not just your friends, but you really get to hang out with, I mean, I think this is actually a good segue. Like I kind of think we need each other, in the industry. And I kind of think that, it's important that we bond with one another, certainly at our jobs and these conventions, these hair shows, it just gives the opportunity for that. And, I love that. Anyways, Dan, I'm going to throw it to you. Let's start off easy and like, what's L'Oreal up to and what's your involvement with L'Oreal when it comes to mental health?
Yeah, of course. So I've been lucky enough to work with L'Oreal now for 19 years, which is pretty amazing. I think I just dated myself. Either way, it's a company that I'm just proud of. And I don't say it like, yes, do I think we have the best color? Maybe. Of course I do. We have great products. We have great everything. But what I love so much about L'Oreal Professional and L'Oreal as a company is we're constantly tackling information. We're tackling challenges. Whether it's in leadership, whether it's in equity, whether it's in diversity, whether it's in mental health, we are a company that is truly moving forward. And what I can say is it's a company that's moving forward for the right reason. We're not doing it, I say we as if I'm part of the company, but I do use the products and I've been an educator for a long time. They, as a whole, they're not doing this for publicity. And I think there is a lot of that happening. This is something that is at the core of the company. And I feel safe in saying that. It's just everyone that I know in leadership from Paris to all over the globe share the same initiative that we are just trying to bring the whole entire community of beauty together. And so when I was asked to bring on this project, actually called Head Up, I was like, well, first of all, I said no 3 times because my calendar is so full. I was like, I can't imagine having the bandwidth to teach one more thing. I'm teaching leadership, I'm teaching social media, culture, all the things. And I said no. And I felt like the email list, the copy, would get longer and longer each time. And I would say no. And so finally, after saying no the 3rd time, now this email has expanded to multiple countries. People are involved in the conversation that we want you. And so I'm someone that very much believes in signs. And all of a sudden, I'm driving to work and I'm just kind of having an inner dialogue in my mind. And I was like, I physically need a sign that is so obvious that this is where I'm supposed to go, because I do believe that all of us are being guided in different directions at all times, and we have to be open. And I received my sign. It could not have been more clear. And so I finally said yes to this project, and it all started to make sense. So I flew to Paris and met with all the team and the psychologists, the psychiatrists, all the people. And we started just kind of putting all this out, fleshing it out. And before you knew it, it was like this was exactly what was supposed to happen. So it's pretty amazing.
You can't like tease the sign and not tell us what the sign was. Well, what was the sign, Daniel?
It's a pretty heavy sign. So a client that I had cared for many years behind the chair, she was young. I had seen all of the signs there of her and maybe that she wasn't doing well. Her hair had stopped growing. She was always very thin. Her dream was to be a model. And we added extensions, we did all the things, and we were never getting to the root problem, right? Her hair wasn't growing because she was not eating the way that she should. And so what happened was I did her hair on Wednesday, and she was going to go out of town to surprise her family. And on Thursday, I'm following this trip that she was on, and Thursday night, she actually passed away from a fatal seizure. And when you Google fatal seizures, one of the first reasons for that is anorexia nervosa. And so all the signs had been there, even though she had masked them pretty well. And when we look at mental health at large, whether it's depression, sometimes you can mask it. You know, some of the greatest comedians that we've ever known have been hilarious and hysterical. And underneath those laughs were pain. And so, and I'm someone that deals with OCD, the real version. We can talk about what that actually is. Everyone's like, you must be so organized. I'm like, no, that's a Virgo. There's a big difference. And I also have really high anxiety. So learning how to navigate life with that. And so L'Oreal, they were like, we want you to be a part of this project because of that. They would see, I'm terrified to fly. There's nothing more scary for me than hopping on an airplane. I do it every weekend. And they're like, we're so proud of the fact that you go out and you face this fear. And sometimes it's actually debilitating. And but I still go do it. And So my son came to me, and I won't go into all the details of that, but I was able to take care of my client that had passed away. I went and took care of her before she was laid to rest, and I put her extensions into her hair, and I stood there for hours getting her body prepared, and it was like it couldn't have been more obvious. You know when something's right, and I was just in that moment thinking, okay, here I am. This is where I'm supposed to be. And as soon as I said yes to it, doors started to open globally. Everywhere I turned around, there was opportunity. And if you're hearing me talk about this and you are an educator or someone that's aspiring to be an educator, please hear my heart. If you don't know me, my heart is always with love. Everybody should not be teaching mental health. And you may say, well, why are you teaching this? And I always like to let people know ahead of time. I actually studied this in college prior to becoming a hairstylist. So I am a licensed funeral director and embalmer. I worked in the funeral business for years. And part of that was that I had to study psychology and grief psychology. So I didn't just pull this out of the hat and be like, oh, there's a need for this, I'm going to go teach in this space. That's not what this is. This is just life coming in full circle.
That's amazing. I was actually going to remind everybody that funeral home and embalming was what you did, and pre hair.
Yes.
How has L'Oreal, like when you were training for this, how did kind of L'Oreal kind of guide you into these conversations or how to deal with these conversations?
Well, we went through a lot of trainings ourselves before this even rolled out, and we were working with teams, we were working with legal, we were working with a whole lot of stuff. And it was really complicated because we weren't coming at this from a mental health perspective of the United States. We were coming from a global initiative. And as we had compiled all this information, L'Oreal had pulled in all this information because they have the resources to do such. And it may come as no surprise that America was number one when it came to mental illness. And number two was China, and number three was India. And of course, those are highly populated areas. There's a lot of stress, all the things. And so, but as we started to dig through France and Asia and all the different areas and just the different cultures, our needs are so specific. And so as we were writing this, and we're even now still talking about making some tweaks and changes based on country. In the United States, for example, if we talk to someone in France or in maybe even UK, they may say something like, well, the hustle culture is so toxic. And indeed, for them in an area, in a country where you do have 6 weeks off vacation every year that's paid for, you do have 6 months to when your maternity paid for, you do have paid college, you do have all these things that are taken care of. Here in the United States, it's not that way, and we have to work hard. If we don't work hard, we can't get to where we need to be. So the challenges become much different, and so we have to understand the needs of the people before we diagnose. And so we work very closely also with NAMI, which is an amazing organization. We work with a young lady by the name of Katrina Gay. She's based out of Nashville, Tennessee, and she comes with an arsenal of information around the mental health space. And so we were able to dig into dialogue and just help navigate conversations. I'm doing lots of classes around this now, and in particular going into 2025. But how to really navigate powerful conversations, whether you're an independent stylist, whether you're in a salon of 500, it doesn't matter what our roles are. All day long, you think about it, 9 a.m., your customer comes in, the first one of the day, and they're getting married, and you're so excited because you've been on them with this journey. And then 9:30, your next client comes in and they've been diagnosed with cancer. 10 o'clock, the client comes in and they're getting a divorce. The next one comes in and they're pregnant. And so all day long, you're on this roller coaster of emotion, and you're happy and you're sad. And then you just feel by the end of the day, by the time 7 o'clock rolls around or whatever time your work schedule is, you drive home physically as a zombie. You drive home in silence. You have the radio's not on, nothing's going. You're just driving, and you're wondering how you even arrived to your location. And a lot of times for those of us that are empaths in this industry, if we take on all of this information, all of this energy, it can actually present itself as burnout. So we really have to know how to navigate these conversations. So part of the curriculum that I'm working with now is, how do we protect ourselves as beauty professionals? How do we identify our own needs, or the needs of our teammates or suite mates? How do we identify the needs of our customers? For those of us that are really serious about what we do, we've been trained around the whole mental health of sex trafficking, or we've been trained around all these different areas. So how do we train ourselves for the next what's to become? And as we navigate, things are only becoming more complicated. Now we're in a political climate. A lot of people have anxiety. Some people feel relieved. People have emotions all over the place. And whichever feeling you have is the right one for you. But how do we compartmentalize those emotions and deal with them?
So,
Go ahead, Corey.
no, Gab, you're up.
You're good. Yeah, no, I just think all of that is so powerful and is so true. Like as a hairstylist, you're constantly around people all day, like whether it's your coworkers or just the clientele you're working with, and it's a lot to process and go through. And I think it's super important to have the tools and resources, the ability to be able to handle those sorts of things. Do you want to talk about sort of a little bit more, dive into a little bit more like sort of what L'Oreal is doing in terms of how they're making those tools and resources available to stylists to be able to care for their mental health?
Absolutely. So we're going to be doubling down in 2025 and just really putting this where it needs to be. In the conversations, something as simple as creating boundaries. When we look at mental health inside of our salons or inside whatever it is that you do, I keep saying salon. I understand there are barbers that listen to this. There's people from all over. So please don't feel that I'm excluding you. Whatever you do as a professional, I'm including you here. We have, and in particular, barbers, because men as a whole, and I know there's a lot of female barbers too, men as a whole don't like to express feeling. And so when you hold all of this inside, it becomes toxic, and there's only so much that you can deal with without something's going to break somewhere. So depression is significantly higher when you look at certain demographics of people. So L'Oreal is really rolling this out in a beautiful way so that we can start with the salons and the professionals, and then how can we trickle up versus trickle down? How do we make a larger impact together? And so there are some initiatives, some that I can't talk about yet, but there are some great things coming. And again, I'm just so incredibly proud to be a part of this company and organization, to know that they deeply really do care. And L'Oreal went so far as to prove who they are as a company. They didn't care what color line you used or what product line you used. When Head Up was created, they gave everyone the opportunity to come to get the key essentials of this program. And then we partnered, as of late, we partnered with Calm, the app.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, which is really amazing. So anyone that completed the Head Up program, L'Oreal was going to provide 3 months free of Calm. And so that was amazing. And then I don't want to misquote, but I feel like it was 50% off a yearly subscription because of the partnership with L'Oreal. And it wasn't to recruit people. It was truly just to help our industry as a whole, because they see the need for our entire industry.
So Daniel, you're one person, and a marvelous person at that. But you're one person. Like how big is the Heads Up team, and how many educators are out there chatting about mental health? And yeah, with that, go.
So the Head Up team is not very large. When we did our work in Paris, that was kind of the mothership of where everything began. Haley Jepson and I, she's a stylist, or she's a former stylist. She's not practicing hair any longer. She dove over into the psychotherapist side of things, and she is out of UK. I think she's in Manchester. And so she and I, we put our heads together with Katrina Gay, and then there was a pretty big team from L'Oreal Corporate that worked behind the scenes on this particular project. As far as educators, I do think that we will probably develop this into something larger as we go along, adding people in, but also understanding fully our commitment to making sure the people that are helping you unpack trauma and all of these things are qualified to help you put it back up. Because it can be very dangerous. Getting someone to get that trauma out on the table, whatever it may be from, it's easy to unpack it. But then how do you deal with it when somebody has an emotional breakdown from unpacking that? If you don't know how to put it back up, it can be very, very dangerous to the person involved. So I love that we're taking this very seriously and handling it with white gloves, just to make sure that it is in the right hands. And I love that about the program.
Are you and not you, but is L'Oreal also they're making it available to all their salon suites, or how is the message getting? Not salon suites, but how is the message getting out there? Like, are you guys showing up more like the hair shows where there's more bang for the buck sort of thing, or you are going, or are you going into salons? And with that, like, is there availability for like a salon that's not necessarily like a L'Oreal salon to bring in the Heads Up program?
Of course, they can always reach out, and of course, at the end, you can put my information in the podcast, whatnot. They can reach out to me. I'm always happy to help and direct them to the right place if need be. Anybody is able to take this. We are mentioning this at the shows. I've actually partnered, as you know, I also work with Salon Centric. So Salon Centric and L'Oreal are very close partners, and I've taught this at a few of the shows. I did it at Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. It was very well received. And so it is at the shows. We're doing classes in salons. I think we're going to probably have cluster events coming up. And we also have a YouTube that you can go on there. I keep the link in my bio on Instagram that you can also get started in the Head Up Keys. It's just pretty amazing. And there's also journals where you can download and kind of write some of the things out. Even if it's self-care practices, whether it's movement or making sure that you're getting the proper nutrition. I think that's one of the biggest things that we overlook in this industry. There's a lot of things that we all joke about. I see the memes all over social media where people are like, oh, today I had a cup of coffee and a prayer. They'll say something silly like that. But if you are struggling with anxiety, one of the worst things that you can put into your body is bad food or something unhealthy. If you're pounding down Red Bulls or Celsius, if you're doing these kind of things all day long and you're already having heart palpitations from anxiety, it probably isn't going to be good for you. So understanding something as simple as water intake each day and how our body is comprised of 80% water anyway. So my rule of thumb is whatever your body weight is, say example, you weigh 100 pounds, divide that in half, 50, that's how many ounces of water you should consume a day. Because you want to make sure that your body is properly, like everything's being flushed out the way that it should be. Toxins, make us toxic. So some things are just common sense, but we overlook them many times in this industry.
Well, dude, I mean, like, if you're booked like 4 clients an hour, you don't have time to pee. So how can you how can you possibly drink that much water?
I do. It's amazing. You just run to the restroom and keep doing your thing. So yeah, I mean, you do have to look after yourself. And the first probably 10, 15 years of my career, I just went in and crushed it and went all in, which was great financially, but what I did to my body during that time, and luckily I am severely ADHD, so I can juggle a lot at one time, which is a really wonderful thing, but I neglected myself. And something that I would love to say to the listeners right now is, or even if you're viewing this somewhere, I want to ask you a very serious question. In this industry, I want you really to think about this. I'm going to ask you, so when you wake up, I've already looked at my schedule for Wednesday when I go into the salon. I've already seen who's on the book. I know exactly what I'm going to do. We're approaching the holiday season. I want to do some different things to the ones that are booked, maybe that they're not even booked for, but I can handle that in my schedule. I'm always planning, and so are you, chances are, what you're going to do. How are you going to tweak this haircut the next time? How are you going to change the color next time? How are you going to make it better for your team? How are you going to do all these things? We wake up every day trying to figure out how we can make everyone else's lives better and easier. The question that I want to ask you right now is, when is the last time you put that same effort into yourself? When is the last time that you woke up and started your day and said, how can I make myself happy today? How can I make myself better for others today? And I know the answer. We don't do it because we're so used to constantly giving to other people. So I would love for us to start changing the narrative, not in a selfish way and not in an egotistical way, but in a way that we can love ourselves, and the more we love ourselves, we can love others bigger and better.
What fires you up?
Oh my God, everything.
That's a cop-out answer, Daniel. Come on.
No, I'm so lucky to be alive, right? Like, I just think about each day, like, how many of us look at no matter how old you are, you know a story of somebody that didn't get to live to be our age, or someone that hasn't had nearly the opportunities that we have. Somebody that would love to have our worst day, they would love to have that. And we wake up, think about this. I love to eat. Eating's my favorite thing in the world, literally. And so how many times have you're in the car with your spouse or your friend and you're like, I want to go eat. What do you want to eat? The other person's like, I don't know. Like, you decide. And they say, well, let's go eat Mexican. You're like, no, I don't want to eat Mexican. That in itself, just take a pause there. That in itself tells you how fortunate we are. The fact that you have a choice in what type of food you actually even get to eat. Because there's people that are literally starving to death right now in the world. So for me, it's perspective. You know, when I think about what other people don't have or the challenges they have that I don't have right now, I can't do anything but give thanks. And so when you come from a place of gratitude and thankful, life shows up for you. And that honestly keeps me going. I'm sure it probably sounds cheesy to some people, and that's fine, but this is my cheesy, and I like it.
No, I like well, you know, cheesy and Mexican food. You can't go wrong.
Oh my God, I love cheese.
Yes. That's, yeah, so good. I want to say just so much of what you said really resonated with me. As you know, I'm not a hair professional. I think that's important to state out loud for some of our viewers watching. You know, I have a broadcast journalism degree and I'm an editor, so my background is in writing and all of that. But you know, being a journalist too, like, you're so much on the go doing so many things, and I developed a lot of really bad unhealthy habits that I'm still recovering from in terms of my health and like taking care of myself and eating, and struggling with a little bit of an eating disorder myself. And I think like one of the biggest things is like, I mean, talking about that, you mentioned like, you know, the hairstylist just having a cup of coffee and like living on hopes and dreams and just keeping going. And I think sometimes it's like a struggle to find those moments to like take care of yourself, to pause, to be like, let me fit in the window to make sure I have like a lunch break or a time to hydrate or stay hydrated. Is there certain things like you recommend or steps that you take like for hairstylists? Because sometimes it just helps to hear it from somebody else of like, here's what I do to make sure that I'm taking care of myself and putting myself first. Because I think a lot of hair professionals are going to need that in 2025 for sure.
For sure. Yes, I echo that. And so, yeah, I mean, look at those water bottles that have like, they're ginormous, and it's like, oh, 8:30, 9 o'clock. It's telling you all day long. Some of us, we really need that. As artists, we need a visual. If you're not disciplined enough to drink the water. So you kind of know where you are throughout the day. And then, you know, we don't stretch. Like, my gosh, something as simple as stretching, go into a doorway all day long. We're leaning forward. Our shoulders are coming forward. Our necks hurt. Our body's off center of gravity. Our head is like leaning forward. So all of our back muscles are like pulling us back. So by the time we finish work for the day, we literally feel like we've been run through a shredder or something. So just taking a moment to stretch, get your water, go into the doorway, stretch for 30 seconds, put your hand on that, pull in, taking a deep breath. You know, even if I'm working on a client, they don't have to know how I'm breathing. Something as simple as breathing in a little bit more slowly and with more intention and holding that breath. So maybe I inhale and it takes a full 5 seconds to inhale, and then I literally hold that for 5 seconds and then to slowly let it out. If I do that maybe 3 times, you can really reset your body. And we look at the studies around the vagus nerve, which is what affects most of how we feel. You can really change that and offset it. And so for me, someone that deals with anxiety, you know, even if I feel like I'm having a serious anxious moment, again, mine happen almost always on an airplane, getting a cold beverage or something cold and just put it against your chest, that will also kind of reset that moment. But understanding your body, when is the last time you took time to get to know what your body is and how you react to certain things, and listen to your breathing, and really take the time when you're inhaling to almost feel your lungs completely expand. Most of us shallow breathe all the time. And if you look at a lot of the disease and ailments that are happening today in our bodies, it's because our bodies are lowly oxygenated. We're not getting the oxygen in that we need. And so just really being aware of those mindful things. And at night, don't sleep with your phone beside your bed because you're so tempted to roll over and see what's happening on TikTok or Instagram. You don't need that. I've actually started consciously putting my phone in a different room, letting it charge. I don't wake up in the morning and grab my phone first thing. I like to just, for me personally on my journey, I like to wake up in the morning, stretch in the bed. I don't get up and stretch the way that I should, but I'll just kind of stretch it out and think about my day. How can I make this day good for everyone, myself included? And that's a habit that's really hard to create, but you can do it. You can softwire the brain.
Daniel, as the boss leader of Muse Salon, since you started Heads Up, have there been any changes within the salon, like that, from a managerial position, like I and I've been in the industry for 30 plus years, and I remember like asking when I first got in the industry, asking for a lunch break, and literally people laughing in my face about
Like, what's wrong with you?
Right. Yeah, exactly, or how you going to eat. And I'm not suggesting those necessarily, but what changes? Only because you're nodding your head, I'm going to go with it. What changes have Muse made since you've been part of the Heads Up program?
Well, to be honest with you, a lot of the things were already there in place, and because I'd been conscious of this even before. So in our salon, we work typically in 6-hour shifts. So 8 o'clock to 2 o'clock, or 2 o'clock to 8 o'clock. And we switch those around based on the needs of the stylist. Nobody works over 4 days ever in our company. That's just not who we are as a company. We have our private shampoo room that I've talked about many times from stage. Our shampoo room is a quiet, dedicated space. All the music in that environment is dedicated to a certain beat per minute. And we do that so that our customers can relax, but we also do it so that my team don't have to think. They can literally go in that room and do their glazes or glosses or root taps or zone tones, whatever they do. They can do that in quiet, and it's just something peaceful. They can also work on their breathing in that space. Our newest location that we built is in a really cool spot. It's very equestrian, and so there's like lots of trees around and a lot of nature. So when we built the shampoo room on this particular salon, the way the windows are, we did the big aluminum framed windows. You're literally looking out at trees, and it's just nature surrounding you. We brought in a lot of greenery to our other salon that's more of a city vibe. We've got a lot of greenery in there because we found that's just through studies. Number one, you get cleaner air to breathe, but you also get a little bit more of a grounding effect because nature does bring us back to reality. We're about to do a big transformation on the flagship salon right now, where in the we have a courtyard that's private and it's amazing. We're going to do some really cool chairs out there that are ergonomically correct, where they can go out and just get away. And so we're constantly making strides. We also have open dialogue around boundaries. We teach our team that it's okay to have boundaries. They know that we always have their back. If someone's critically late or there's someone that's no-showed more than twice, we'll make sure that we have their back in that as well. Because sometimes it's not a comfortable conversation for them. I know a lot of people are talking big game on social media, but the reality is the reason this keeps happening is because proper boundaries haven't been put into place, and passive aggressive posting does not do the trick. We have to really get to the source of the problem, nip it in the bud. And so I can confidently say our team always know that we have their back around those kind of things, and we're always going to make sure that their wellness comes first and foremost in the company.
Daniel, with I'm assuming that you've been in lots of salons or lots of salon environments, talking about this stuff. Are you, and we talked about it a little bit before we went on, but are you seeing is there a generational divide when it comes to it? Is there a gender divide? Is there what are those divides from your side, in your perspective?
So there's definitely a gender divide. There's no question around that. And I hate to say this because I'm such an inclusive person. So if someone identifies female, they're typically going to be a little bit more open to have conversation. Now, are you going to have someone that identifies female that's quiet? Yeah, of course. Maybe they choose to keep things to themselves. They're more of a private type. But traditionally, it's the people that identify male that really hold it in. And then when it comes to generation, absolutely. When I talk about this so passionately inside the salons that I go into, or at the hair shows, or wherever I might be, there are people that have been through decades of stress, anxiety, depression, and because maybe they wear that differently, it's almost like a badge of honor. It's like, well, I've been depressed for 45 years, and you just have to toughen up and deal with it. Leave it at the door. Well, that's not how it is anymore. And I really commend the younger generation for being in touch with their feelings. And I'm always going to be the president of the fan club of Gen Z. I love Gen Z. No apologies around that. Gen Z has had so many odds. Every generation has had odds stacked against them, but in particular, Gen Z. And so if you look at from the very time that they were born, just the events that have happened here in the United States since they were born. And then once they got to like formative years, their parents maybe lost their jobs. And so they saw their parents had worked and worked and worked and tried to do all these things. And then they lost everything. And then it came time to graduate. They did it on a computer screen. So it was like there's just so many things stacked against them. All meanwhile, maybe some of the other generations are saying things and saying like, oh, lazy entitlement, all the different things that are there. So I do feel that each generation changes. Of course, you know, you take people that were born in the Great Depression, those are some tough people. My God, they could do anything. But we're not those people. And every generation we change. And I love that we have gotten in touch with our feelings more. We can communicate better. And I think it's really important, all those things. So yes, there is definite differences between the generations. And I think communication has never been more important. And it's also never been more obsolete. So learning how to communicate it should be key of everything that we're putting in our focus for the future. We have to learn how to communicate with other people. And when we talk about communication, we have to learn to listen. Because if we don't listen, we're never going to go anywhere.
You know what? That was a big learn for me as far as the listening. Like I know that's and not to me personally, but you know, you read a meme or something and somebody mentioned that, you know, if you're having a conversation and you're waiting to talk, then you're not really having a conversation, right? You're just having a talk, you know. So I've been personally I try to be a little bit more aware of that. And I'm not saying that those thoughts aren't there; they're there all the time. But just to kind of settle down and go like, okay, stop like wanting to talk and open your ears a little bit. And that's been pretty helpful. Like for me, also like looking over people, which you know I'm terrible at. Certainly, I think a little bit of it is the ADD. Like if we're in a room together, like I'm looking, but I don't mean any disrespect, but I understand that it can be disrespectful. You know what I mean? But I'm going to get back to and with permission from Gabby and with permission from Daniel, I'm going to get on my soapbox a little bit if you don't mind, and I want to talk about Gen Z because there's a perspective that I don't hear a lot of people talk about. You kind of brought it up a little bit, but I kind of want to double down on that. Is that this is an entire generation that like, and we often kid about safe space, but this is a generation that was raised without safe space. And what I mean by that is that, you know, my daughter's 30, so I kind of watched it, you know, as she's coming through. But, you know, from the time that she was in third grade with Columbine, and then after Columbine, right after that, we had September 11th. And then right after that, we have kids hiding in the closets and doing like these shooter things. And then, and my generation, and Daniel, you're younger than me, but I'll speak for you too. Like, I never felt like school was an unsafe place. I went to school with some assholes, you know, and I went to school with some people that I didn't, you know, care for so much. However, I never felt that it wasn't a safe space, and I get a little like turbed when there's this conversation about Gen Z and social media and stuff. And I'm not saying that social media doesn't have an impact on mental health, but I'm saying that for Gen Z or for, you know, 30 and under, really 35 or under now, that it's much more than just social media. You know, the pressure and the impact that's been on these people their entire lives, you know, it does not shock me at all that there's this push to homeschooling, and it doesn't shock me at all that there's all this movement to not trust those schools and those spaces. And unfortunately, sorry, Gab, give me one more sec to make this point, and I promise you I'll give you the mic.
You're good. You're good.
Is that these kids now that grew up in the school are now our teachers. So they're also dealing with the same trauma that they came up with, which is only going to, until something big happens, is only going to elevate and escalate that trauma dumping on each other. Sorry, Gab, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah, I just feel like it's important that I chime in because I am Gen Z. Like I'm going to be, at the time that we're recording this, I'm 23, but by the time this goes up, I'll be 24. Woo, 10 days till my birthday. Anyway, so I know that it like really resonated with me when you mentioned like school being a safe space, because I did like had repeatedly like fire drills, the shooter drills. Like I am on the older end of that. I feel like it progressively got worse as I graduated high school, because I graduated high school in 2019.
Oh boy.
Yes. Yeah, I was like, wow, so long ago. No, and then I graduated college in 2022. And so like when you talk about school being like a safe space, one of the things that came up to my mind is my senior year homecoming. like there was a massive stampede because I think there was a freshman who brought in like BB gun, and suddenly it was just like panic and kids like freaking out and like running and stampeding over each other. And so it's just like I think about that, and then I think about like going to college and having to, you know, like take journalism classes during COVID and everything. Like it is been like so crazy being a part of Gen Z, and also like social media is a part of it because I feel like I've also noticed just so much divisiveness and just like, you know, having opinions and being on the right side of history and being, you know, wanting to be like a game changer and wanting to be able to sort of, you know, be at the front of like having conversations about how do we make things better, how do we make spaces feel safer, more inclusive, more diverse, like, you know, making sure that we're you know, giving a voice to proper people and uplifting, you know, voices that are out there that are doing, you know, good and making a difference. And it's just, it's so much, it's so overwhelming, and it's so much information that you're taking in and consuming. And I can't even imagine what it's like, you know, because I have a friend who's a year and a half older than I am, who's a hair professional and is a hairstylist, you know, and I can't even imagine what it's like, you know, being a professional behind the chair where you're with clients day in and day out as like a young person too, because you have so much that you're going through and experiencing. And then also then, you know, everything that you're taking in from your clients and what their experiences are and internalizing that as well. Like it is just truly, it's a lot. And it's definitely like so important to have the resources and the platforms, the spaces, the, you know, the places to help and the people to turn to, you know, which is, you know, we were talking with Elizabeth about like community being so important and needing like those people you can turn to and, you know, be a shoulder to cry on or just, you know, uplift you and support you and everything that you're doing. You know, so I'm sort of curious, like, I guess then to turn it back to you, Daniel, like what, you know, like, for the younger hairstylists, because you're talking, you know, since we're focusing on Gen Z and sort of what is they're going through, like, I mean, your just sort of tips, advice, things for them, like you'd recommend, like being younger, like just having to internalize so much, like things, you know, any messages, words of wisdom you want to give to any of like the newer stylists listening that are kind of like having to, you know, maybe enter the industry for the first time and then also having to, you know, process so much, especially going forward in 2025. I think there's a lot to be scared about and worried about for sure.
I love that. Thank you for all the share. That was really good. I forgot that I was even recording. I was just like into the moment. So yeah, you know, Gen Z or anybody in particular, but definitely Gen Z, just understand like everything's going to be okay. Coming from someone that's a little older, it's going to be okay. And even though things are absolutely wild, and to your point, we don't know what is coming our way. And even for myself, I can't tell you that I'm not uneasy because I don't know. And I don't know what the future holds. Everything is changing so quickly. The divisiveness has never been larger. So as Gen Z, just hold it together as best you can. Allow yourself to feel whatever it is that you need to feel. And I think it's critical that when we're branding ourselves as professionals in this industry, and I teach so many branding classes, it is critical that you are so true to who you are. And this is what I love about Gen Z. I feel like you really do identify to who you truly are. And it's not taking you as long as it did us. You know, we would have to make it to 35 years old, and then we'd have this like epiphany, like, oh my God, I've been living my whole life for everybody else to make them happy. And I don't think Gen Z is that. I think Gen Z has already figured it out. And if you haven't, you're going to, oh my gosh, I'm over here cheering you on all the way. But just be as authentic as you can, because here's what I know. If you're trying to please everyone, as we did in my generation, you're going to lose your own voice. And as you really dive into who you are and you put that out on your social media and you just remain true to who you are, your tribe is going to show up. They're going to support you. They're going to gather around you. You will have your community. And that's the beautiful side of social media, is it allows us that opportunity to do so. Social media is incredibly stressful. I live in that world. It's a revenue stream for me. You know, you always kind of have to be on your game, but I don't, like for me, I taught a class today and I was telling the whole salon that I was at, I was like, listen, just do the best that you can do. You don't have to worry about having the perfect lighting. You don't have to have every hair in place. People, honestly, I feel like people are sick to death of inauthenticity. I know that I am. I can smell it a mile away. Just be you in the truest version that you can. I had someone in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. I was at a show, the last show that I did 2 weeks ago. And there was a person in the room that identified as non-binary. And they were so terrified to put themselves out on social media in fear of the attacks that they would get. And I could hear the pain in their voice as they were sharing this. It was quite bold to share it in a room that large. And it brought tears to my eyes because I was standing there just listening to this story. And I then gathered the room. I could have moved on to the next question because there were a lot of questions in the room. But I paused and I honored that person for sharing their truth. And I was like, do all of you in this room, and there was every age and every belief system, I'm quite sure, in that room, do you hear the emotion behind this person's voice? They're scared to even post hair on their page. Their page is private because they live in such fear of how people like us might make them feel. That's terrible. Like, shame on all of us. And so I say it all the time. Be true to yourself. Be kind to other people. Let your light shine as bright as you can. It's going to bother a lot of people, but you know, Corey and I did the first podcast we ever did was like a tearjerker. It was intense. We had to do a part 1, part 2. And I was very clear about sharing my truth in that podcast, and it connected to so many thousands of people. And I remember Corey messaging me like 2 years later. He was like, that was still the most listened to podcast. And it was just being vulnerable and real. And people really do want that. That's the largest sign of strength. So be who you are. If you feel like you're experiencing depression or anxiety or any of these things, there's so many resources, and you all can link them down below. But NAMI.org, NAMI.org is a free resource. Of course, you know, things get really troublesome. 988 is a suicide prevention hotline. If you get in that position, please, I personally,
Hey, Daniel, give me those numbers again. You broke up with the number, and that was kind of an important bit to get. What was the numbers?
988.
Okay.
This is really important. And NAMI.org. There's so many resources there that are available that are non-biased, you know, because there are organizations out there that you might call if you're in crisis, but sometimes people like myself, if I were to call that particular organization or hotline, it may be an organization that thinks that people like me are wrong. And so they might do farther harm. So I like to be around safe spaces when it comes to mental health. NAMI is exactly that. They're not biased around any sort of belief. The belief is around creating a holistic approach to making all of us better and offering true solutions for all people. And so, but please don't be afraid to reach out for the help and really start to navigate these conversations. You know, talk about mental health around your family. Talk about, here's the holidays. We're right here at the holidays. It's probably one of the most stressful times of the year for whatever reason it might be. Rarely do we have families that we all get really excited to go home to see. If you have that, my gosh, you better say thank you 10 times before you go to sleep tonight. But most of us don't have that. This year, I'm going to celebrate my first holiday ever without my mom being here, and I don't even know how I'm going to navigate that. You know, I feel the feelings of grief, and it sits like a heavy necklace on my chest. And but I'm not the only one. I feel like this year's been a lot of that. Or maybe you have found the love of your life, and you're so happy, but you know that your family are not going to accept that person. And so many people are dealing with a lot. I did a podcast 2 years ago around this time with one of my best friends that's a psychiatrist, and we really talked about that. Like, you know, how am I supposed to feel at the holidays, and how do I handle those conversations? How do I avoid those conversations or the traps that might be set at our own table? So, but again, with all that I say today on this podcast, just be true to yourself. And when you feel the feelings, acknowledge them and allow yourself to feel, because when you tuck things away, that's when it becomes toxic and harmful.
Daniel, I'm going to jump in real quick. You mentioned something earlier about, you know, certainly how Gen Z has, you know, really owned their space. But I'm going to, with permission, I also want to give a little warning about that. and that is that understand that change. So if you're having a belief system change, like that's okay too. That's okay. So many times in my own life, I got bogged down by the change, and it was just in my heart of hearts, I believe that change is not what's next. What's next is always that cloud nine. What's next is always fun and interesting. What change is giving up an old belief system. And sometimes I've sat in belief systems that I didn't believe in for 2 years because I didn't know how. You feel me? So, I'm trying to be better with that and go, okay, am I just being resistant to a belief system, whatever that belief system is? And belief systems are both. So for me, it was like, do I care who wins the Super Bowl? Do I care who wins this game or not? It can be as silly and as trivial as that, or it can be some real serious like stuff. So, certainly my advice to my daughter is make sure that whatever wherever your life is now, that it doesn't become such a belief system that you can't leave it. Whatever that is. So I just with a little bit of warning there. Hey Gab, before we take off, you got anything?
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Daniel, so much for chatting with us today. I appreciated listening and hearing from you, and I appreciate all the work and things that you're doing, because as someone who's also struggled with her mental health significantly, and I struggle with anxiety as well, and am on 20 milligrams, not afraid to admit it, of Lexapro. I take the anxiety meds. Made a radical difference in my life. So if that's something that you need, I definitely recommend it, because it's given me a whole new lease on life. And I'm willing to be open and honest about that, because I would not be sitting here in front of you today and doing all the things that I'm doing if it weren't for that, But I guess, like I said, I just want to thank you, for chatting with us and for sharing everything, all of your wisdom for 2025 for hair professionals, just to sort of, like you said, wrap us up. That are looking into the new year and are maybe a little bit, worried about what's to come, or, sort of wanting to prioritize their mental health a little bit more and really put up those boundaries, what would you say? I guess I'm trying to think about the best way to word this. What do you think, in terms of I guess one of the things I'm also thinking of is, I was at an event today as well. We're talking about sort of dealing with clientele and different things like that, setting those boundaries. What are your advice for how you navigate those conversations in terms of people who are dealing with family members and are maybe we don't see, there's a lot of relationships and things that may be shifting, and you may want to really prioritize your mental health, which means sort of putting up those boundaries. And how do you recommend for hair professionals that are looking to really prioritize their mental health, which means maybe firing certain clientele, or just setting more boundaries as to what they want their salon environment to look like, so that they're having clientele that they're able to be a resource for, but also don't drain their energy as well. How to set those boundaries and sort of things to do around the salon, maybe to be able to help better their mental health.
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things is learning to journal. I want you to, at some point in time, take the time to write down what you want out of life. If you were building your ideal clientele, I put everything about them, but how do you want them to feel? How do you want them to treat you? How do you want them to show up and respect you? So that's key, because I can guarantee you 98% of our industry have never taken the time to write down the things that they need or want. Journal. Even if it's just putting notes in your phone, you can voice text yourself, you can do whatever. It doesn't have to be fancy at all, but really stating things.
The iPhone has a new journal app, don't they?
Oh, I don't know. What?
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Teach me, wizard.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, so journal. And then before your day starts, we should all start our day with an intention. What is the intention of our day? Not the goal, the intention. I'm going to be so intentional about XYZ. And then somehow...
Okay, I'm going to stop you, Daniel. Sorry. Give me an example of a goal and an intention.
A goal is I would like to make more money. An intention is today I'm going into the salon, I'm going to give myself a 20% raise. An intention is today I have a customer coming in that has been late to me multiple times. An intention is that I'm going to have a powerful conversation with this person. I'm going to look them in the eye and say, thank you so much for trusting in my artistry. I appreciate you. Also, I would like to let you know that the past couple of times you have been late for your appointment with me. It makes me very stressed because I'm so respectful to all of my customers with time. So when you're 20 minutes late and I book 30 minutes for this appointment, it puts me in a situation where I'm only with you for 10 minutes and then I feel as if I'm disrespectful to my other clients. Moving forward, I need you to understand and hear me that you have to be on time. If you're not on time, again, I'm going to have to invite you to find another hairstylist. That's an intention. That's just saying, hey, tomorrow for me, I'm not behind the chair. I'm going to be off. I've got a lot of phone calls and things scheduled for tomorrow and a podcast. My intention of tomorrow is that I'm going to make someone's day brighter and better. And somehow I'm going to offer them hope. That's an intention.
I love that. Love that. Daniel, where can people find you? Where can people talk to you? When do you start?
Delta Airlines. I'm just kidding.
Oh, Delta.
So you can find me on social media. I live there. My name is Daniel Mason Jones, spelled exactly like it sounds. I spend most of my time on Instagram. I am going to be digging into the YouTube space a little bit broader in 2025. You can find me anywhere, really. I do have a podcast. I've kind of buried it for a while. I don't have... The time commitment has not been there, but I do fully intend on bringing that back, even if it's just one podcast a month. It's called More Than Beauty because I believe what we do truly is more than beauty. And Daniel Mason Jones. I even have a website, danielmasonjones.com. It needs to be updated, but I do have one. You can find all my information there. And with this podcast, Corey, I always love our time together. I don't care if it's at dinner or saying hello in the hotel hallways where we always laugh about the ugly carpets or
Killing our inside stuff, man. So
I know the inner circle.
So Gabby, during travel season, Daniel and I will share photographs of the hotel carpets, and we're trying to come up with the ugliest one, but they're all so ugly it's hard to find the ugliest one. So
I have to get in on this. I feel like as someone who travels a lot both for fun and for work, that I could contribute heavily to this conversation.
It's amazing.
It's pretty fun.
When the red and yellows hit the carpets, when I typically am just I'm like, I can't do this. I can't even look at the carpet.
You know why they do that, Daniel?
Sorry?
Do you know why they do it?
Why?
Because it keeps them from looking dirty.
Ugh. Then that for someone like me just made it worse. I'm gonna have to go walk in the
That's why I shared. Daniel's gonna learn how to fly.
I'm gonna go trace breathe, box breathe, and walk in the woods. But no. So this podcast, I hope that the listeners, I hope you all found some value in here. And there's so many things that we could talk about. When it comes to mental health, one of the biggest stressors in our industry is financial, the emotional fatigue around the finances of our industry. So there's so much more information that we have. You can definitely research, head up, find that. There's going to be more information coming in the upcoming year. And if you're at any of the hair shows, hopefully I will see you there. But I'm grateful to both of you for this time and for all the listeners. Thank you.
I'm grateful for you, and in a real way, Daniel. I just appreciate the friendship that we've had over the last few years, and how much you're doing for the industry, and how much you've done for me and in my life, and just always being there and always being like a sounding board or whatever, because sometimes I can get a little crazy too. So Daniel's great. You should stop it. So Daniel's a great sounding board to be like, am I being crazy? Am I being crazy, or is this real? And I also appreciate the friendships where I'm like, am I being a little crazy, or is this real? And your true friend will tell you you're being crazy. Your acquaintance will tell you that you're right. So I appreciate honest talk too. Certainly, I can appreciate that. Daniel Mason Jones and Gabby, thanks for giving time to this today. I think it's imperative that that we keep talking about this in the industry. And as the industry changes and stuff, this is the one thing that I kind of, unfortunately, kind of see is always going to kind of be there. You know, we should be talking about mental health and how we can help, our industry out. Daniel Mason Jones and Gabby Bach, thank you very much for joining us on the Hair Industry BLP Beauty Launchpad Collaborative podcast. Until next time, thank you guys so much.
Thank
Thank
you all.
you.
And happy early birthday.
Thank you.